If your loved one was injured in a nursing home, there is one document that shows exactly what the facility promised to do to keep them safe and the care that they were going to provide. And it's called a care plan. And in 25 years of handling these cases, the care plan is one of the first two documents that I look at. I look at the care plan and the MDS, called the Minimum Data Set. Now, I'm David Terry. I'm a nursing home abuse and neglect attorney in St. Louis, and I handle cases throughout Missouri and Illinois. And in this video, I'm going to explain what a care plan is, what it's required to contain, and why it can become one of the most powerful pieces of evidence in a nursing home neglect case. And I'm also going to provide you with one specific word that I see nursing homes use that I consider a deliberate attempt to avoid accountability. But more on that later. So what is a care plan? A care plan is a written document that outlines the specific care a nursing home resident needs, how the facility will provide care for those needs, and who is responsible for providing it. Now, having a care plan, that's not optional. It's a federal regulatory rule that requires this to take place. If you want to look it up, it's 42 CFR 483.21. Now, this rule requires every nursing home that accepts Medicare or Medicaid to create a comprehensive, person-centered care plan for each individual resident. Now, remember, I mentioned the MDS, the Minimum Data Set document. The MDS is what feeds the care plan. The MDS is a comprehensive assessment of the resident, head to toe, and everything in between. This assessment identifies the resident's needs and risks. The care plan is the plan of action. It takes the risks in the MDS and spells out what the nursing home is going to do to address those risks and needs. So if the MDS shows your loved one is at high risk for falls, the care plan has to say specifically what the facility is going to do to try to prevent those falls. And then what happens if there is a fall. If the MDS shows that your loved one's at risk for bed sores, the care plan has to address that directly. The care plan is the facility's written promise of how they are going to address each risk factor your loved one has. Now, let's talk about what a care plan has to include. Most care plans are organized into 4 columns: the problem, the goal, the approach, which is the specific interventions the facility commits to, and the discipline responsible, meaning which staff members are accountable for each piece of the plan. Now, different companies may have different looks. They don't all have to be 4 columns, but the basic information is essentially the same. Federal regulatory rules are very specific about what those columns, what those care plans have to contain. The problem section has to address all of the residents' assessed needs, not just physical, but physical, mental, and psychosocial. We're talking about mobility, nutrition, continence, skin integrity, medications, mental health, and social engagement. And if the MDS identified it as a problem area, the care plan has to address it. Now, the care plan goals have to be measurable. They can't be something nebulous like improve mobility. No, these goals need to be specific. Something like resident will ambulate 50 feet with a walker twice daily, or the resident will consume 75% of meals to maintain current weight. These need to be goals that can actually be evaluated. The approach section is the one that I focus on most as an attorney, because this is where the facility commits to specific actions, not something like monitor as needed or not provide appropriate care. This column should have concrete interventions like turn and reposition every 2 hours, skin assessment every shift, pressure relieving mattress, barrier cream with each brief change. Specific enough that a staff member can read it and know exactly what they're supposed to do. And look, care plans are not static. They have to be reviewed and updated at least quarterly, and also after any significant change in the resident's condition, and then whenever goals are not being met. So if your loved one falls in March, develops a bed sore in April, the care plan is required to be updated to reflect those things and how they're going to address them. And in my experience, this is where many facilities often fall short. Now, remember I told you that there was a word that I think a lot of nursing homes use in their care plans to avoid accountability? That word is frequently. So a care plan might say, turn and reposition frequently. I think they use that word deliberately in an effort to avoid accountability. So let me focus specifically on Missouri here because it has a specific rule that Illinois and many other states don't have. And that regulatory rule is found at 19 CSR 30-85.042, and then in parentheses, the number 69. And this rule requires nursing homes to reposition residents who cannot change their own position at least every 2 hours. That is the standard for residents in Missouri who are unable to reposition themselves and who are at risk for pressure injuries. But a lot of facilities won't put every 2 hours in the care plan. They'll write frequently instead. So I've asked this question in depositions. Tell me what frequently means. How many times in a 24-hour day is frequently? You know what answer I often get? I don't know. I think about that. A nurse responsible for preventing bed sores can't tell me what frequently means in the context of repositioning, which is designed to prevent bed sores. So how can you provide the care you're required to provide if you don't know what you're supposed to do? So I believe frequently is a deliberately vague term designed to make it harder to prove that the care wasn't followed. And I've never, in 25 years of handling these cases, never seen a nursing home chart that documents repositioning every 2 hours for the entirety of a resident's residency. Never, not once. In fact, it's kind of rare to even see sporadic repositioning documentation. Let me tell you what a bad nursing home care plan looks like versus a good nursing home care plan. So here's what an inadequate care plan looks like for a resident who's at risk for bed sores. So the problem will be skin integrity. The goal? Maintain skin. Interventions: turn and reposition as needed. Monitor skin. Provide appropriate care. I mean, that's useless. What does as needed mean? How often is that? Monitor skin? When do you do that? How do you do that? Appropriate care? What does that mean? See, this is a boilerplate plan. Well, actually, it may not, I'm not even sure this would qualify as boilerplate. It's just bad. So it could apply to any resident in any facility for the most part. And if I see a care plan like this, I know that the facility is not taking individualized or person-centered care planning seriously. Now look, on the opposite end of the spectrum, here's what a good care plan looks like for the same resident, someone who's at risk for developing pressure injuries. So the problem is identified: high risk for pressure ulcers due to immobility and incontinence. Goal: resident's skin will remain intact with no new pressure ulcers. Interventions: turn and reposition every 2 hours and document on turning schedule. Pressure relieving mattress on the bed. Pressure relieving cushion on the wheelchair. Skin assessment every shift. Report any redness immediately. Check and change briefs every 2 hours or as needed. Apply barrier cream with each brief change. High protein diet with supplement twice daily. Encourage fluid intake, minimum 1,500 milliliters per day. Now, do you see the difference between those two? That second one, that has specific information. That's actionable. A staff member can read that and know exactly what they're supposed to do. Now look, having said all that, you can have the best care plan in the world on paper, but the staff still needs to do the work. So let's say that we have a resident that develops a stage 4 bed sore. With the second care plan, I can ask in deposition very specific questions and request the documentation that supports what they were supposed to do. So for example, my question might be something like this: show me the documentation that tracks every time the resident was repositioned every 2 hours. And the documentation that they provide will tell whether they did it or not. But with the first care plan, the questions are more difficult. It goes something like this. Question: what does as needed mean? Answer: well, when he needs it. Question: okay, did you reposition him on July 5 because there's no documentation showing that you did? Answer: I guess he didn't need it then. Now that may be a bit fictionalized, but it's not too far off of real testimony that I've received when taking depositions on bad care plans. So what should you do if you suspect that the care plan wasn't followed and your loved one was injured as a result? Here's a straightforward process. First thing you need to do: request the care plan. If you're the power of attorney or responsible party, you're absolutely entitled to it. And get the initial plan and all updated versions and the current care plan. Ask for it in writing. Second, compare to the MDS assessments. Get all those as well. Do the risks identified in the MDS show up in the care plan? If the MDS flags a fall risk and the care plan doesn't address it, Specifically, that's a problem. And then third, compare the care plan to the daily nurse's notes and the activities of daily living charting. If the care plan says reposition every 2 hours, does the charting show that it was done? And in my experience, as I said, it's almost never documented. And that disconnect is often the heart of the legal case. And if you see that pattern where the MDS identified a risk, the care plan was vague or not updated, or the daily notes don't show that the plan was followed, and an injury or death resulted, you need to talk to an attorney who handles nursing home cases. As we come to the close of this video, I want to remind you the care plan is the facility's own roadmap. It's their own documentation of what they knew and what they committed to do. And when a nursing home says, "We didn't know she was at risk," I pull out that MDS form. And when they say, "Well, we had a care plan," I make them confirm that it was the best plan that they could come up with and that they were required to follow it. And when they say, "We did everything we could," I pull out those daily notes and I show them exactly where the promises they made weren't kept. The care plan doesn't lie. It's their own documentation. And when it's inadequate, vague, or just not followed, that, in my opinion, is negligence. Now you understand what a care plan is and why it matters. But knowing what should be in the care plan is quite different from knowing how to read one and actually spot the problems. My next video, that's entitled "How to Read Your Loved One's Care Plan and Spot the Red Flags." This video shows you exactly how to do that. I go into what sections to focus on, what specific language to watch for, and what tells me if a care plan is inadequate or wasn't followed. So go watch that video next, and I'll see you